All right, and the last thing we did with graphs was graphing with restricted domains. And all this means is that you're being told what you can and can't use for x values. And when you make your line, you just want to make sure that you haven't included any values of x outside of the restriction. So the easiest way to do these are with function tables. In our first example, we have y equals 3x minus 5, and we have that domain restriction of x is greater than or equal to negative 4. So I'm going to make a function table. I have x and y. And I always want to use the value or values they give me. So negative 4 will be my starting point. And when I substitute negative 4 in for x, I'm doing 3 times negative 4 minus 5. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Minus 5 is negative 17. So that would be negative 17 for our y value. We'll do the same thing, but now we get to select our own values. And I just want to pick anything that is greater than negative 4. And I like 0, so I'll use 0, 0, and then I'll probably use 1. So we'll do 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. And then we have 3 times 1 minus 5. 3 times 1 is 3. Minus 5 is negative 2. So now I can graph those points. And I wish I had picked a better example because negative 4, negative 17 is going to be off the graph. I'm just going to plot that down there. We're going to pretend that negative 17 is there. Our next point is 0, negative 5. 0, negative 5 is on the graph, thankfully. And then we have 1, negative 2. So I go over 1, down 2. And obviously, I'm not going to get a perfectly straight line here because I eyeballed that negative 17, but let's pretend. So the difference about a domain restriction is that we will not have arrows on both sides of the line. This is telling us our domain is everything greater than negative 4. And if x is negative 4 right here, that means it's going to keep going up in this direction. So I want my arrow on this side of the line. A quick trick that helps people sometimes is you just look at the sign and hey, that arrow matches up with the same direction that the arrow on our line is going. All right, last example, we have y equals negative 1/2 x plus 10. This time we have a domain restriction with two values. We know that x is going to be greater than or equal to 0, but also less than or equal to 6. So I'm going to want to use both of those values in my table. I have x and y. So for my lowest value, I'll use 0. For my highest value, I'll use 6. And I'm looking at my equation. I notice that I'm going to be doing negative 1/2 times x. So I want to pick something that's divisible by 2. I'll pick 2. And now I can just plug in some values. So we have negative 1/2 of 0 plus 10. So negative 1/2 of 0 is 0 plus 10 is 10. Do the same thing with 2. We'll substitute 2 for x. Negative 1/2 times 2 is negative 1 plus 10. Negative 1 plus 10 is 9. And finally, we have 6. So negative 1/2 of 6 is negative 3. Plus 10 is positive 7. I go back up to my graph and plot these points. So my first point is at 0, 10. So I stay right in the middle, go up 10. My next point is at 2, 9. So I go over 2, up 9. And then I have 6, 7. So I go over 6 and up 7. Now, with this domain restriction, since I have a hard start and a hard finish, I'm not going to use an arrow on either end of the line. We have a definitive beginning at 0, 10, right here. A definitive end at 6, 7. So no arrows.